Decisions. Decisions like, what should I eat for dinner tonight? What substance should I abuse to enhance my editing process tonight? Should I waste away my hours playing Risk of Rain 2 or Elden Ring? Or, I don't know, doing something productive, I guess. Having enough of this intense decision weighing in on my conscience, I've decided to move away from being one-shot in Elden Ring to playing Risk of Rain 2. Survivors of the Void is Risk of Rain 2's first content DLC, the first of potentially multiple. It adds 2 new characters, a completely new final boss and in-game route associated with that. Risk of Rain has always enticed me. Playing the first game, I was quickly drawn in by its brilliant soundtrack, simple and effective visuals, all the funky interactions between the items, that never-ending, nail-bitingly tense gameplay loop, and of course the underlying themes of how humans fuck up everything they touch, and how everyone is individually responsible for the slow but gradual decline of our planet. You know, normal stuff for a pixel game about funny spacemen wearing fish bowls on their heads. Risk of Rain 2 is the same sort of deal, retaining all the things that the original game did well, but with one major twist. It utilized that third dimension we all know and love, alongside a seafood platter's worth of new content, completely revolutionizing the original side-scroller. Survivors of the Void is a step in a different direction, going against every other update for this game's theme of being completely free. So does Survivors of the Void fit into the rest of Risk of Rain's update line? Is its financial model disruptive to the casual player? And most of all, is it worth it? Alright, we can cut it out with the YouTuber crap now. Yes, Survivors of the Void is all of those things. It's great. I think we all know that. This video will discuss why it's really cool, because it is. Sorry that the air of suspense has been broken, but this is supposed to be entertaining. We're not making conspiracy theories here. Truly, one cannot say they've experienced video games until they've been wholly represented by a character present in one. For me, no character represents me better than the Railgunner. Nothing is a better virtual metaphor for my life than missing every single goddamn shot. Fuck. Railgunner is the first of 2 characters that SOTV adds, unlocked by default as soon as you purchase the DLC. I actually don't like this. As a sweaty serotonin addict, nothing gets my serotonin gland pumping like having virtual goodies to unlock. I don't know why exactly, but I like having to work for certain unlocks in games. It makes it feel like I've earned my progression, as opposed to just being handed it on a silver platter. I get that it's good to have some new content in the DLC as soon as you buy it, as there's a fair chance you won't see anything new for a few minutes, but still. Railgunner is Risk of Rain's resident long-range shooter. Her bread-and-butter moves are completely unaffected by range, allowing her to take out priority targets from any distance away. Oh, and did I mention that she potentially has the single highest damage out of any character? Yeah. Railgunner's first ability is, disappointingly, not able to instantly kill bosses from across the map. Okay, fine, I guess it's sort of important. The XQR Smart Round system is RG's way of dealing with swarms of trashy enemies, such as these weird chicken things. Railgunners will be using this ability a lot throughout the average playthrough, as she struggles with dealing with close targets, especially in large numbers. While this ability is not the most exciting thing in the world, it really makes her other abilities feel special. The M99 Sniper is Railgunner's bread and butter move. Scoping in for the kill, this ability deals a ton of damage, easily able to wipe out tougher enemies such as golems, especially if they're kind enough to stand still. This is accentuated if the Railgunner is able to get a perfect reload after firing, which will buff her next shot's damage by a lot. Using this ability is absolutely brilliant. One-tapping enemies with it genuinely never gets old, which is largely thanks to the satisfying noise that it makes. Oh yeah, with it comes RG's biggest drawback however, her weakness against hordes of smaller foes. Unable to easily hit them with her long-range scope, Railgunner can be easily overwhelmed. Thankfully, that's where the HH44 Marksman comes in, RG's first unlockable ability. The HH44 is similar to the Sniper except that it doesn't require reloading, but has a much lower damage capability and a shorter range scope. The Marksman is a partial solution to Railgunner's struggles against swarms of enemies. With a much faster fire rate, you can dispatch swarms of wisps and other small mobs much faster than you can with the M99 or her smart rounds. However, the lack of damage is noticeable against medium targets like golems and elite enemies. Third comes Shooty Lady's movement ability, her concussion devices. This has quickly become a favourite movement ability of mine. I mean, it's just fun to whiz around, propelled by exploding pancakes. The CDs can also push enemies back, but this is not really as reliable as other enemy manipulating abilities out there. Alternatively, if you're somehow tired of bounding around like a mad thing, the polar field device might be more your thing. This ability will slow down any enemies and projectiles that enter it. Its cooldown is quite similar to its uptime, which means you can repeatedly cast it if you need. This is a really cool idea, but I've never actually found it to have lots of practical use, especially because so many of the projectiles in the game are hit scan and therefore aren't affected by the field. Additionally, sacrificing all your movement on a character who already struggles with close range combat, well, it's not the best idea. Finally, Railgunner has Supercharge. This ability is what enables her to eradicate anything that dares cross her path, just as long as she, you know. I love everything about this ability. It's like the build-up and tension of an entire Hollywood feature summed up in a 7-second ability cast. First, there's the build-up as you charge up the ability. Then that tense moment as you try and score the perfect shot in the limited time window. And finally, either relief or panic as you revel in the success/failure of your shot, and frantically run around with all your abilities disabled for 5 whole seconds. Absolutely brilliant. Void Fiend is the second character added in the DLC. Void Fiend is, well, it's... how do I describe this thing? Void Fiend is goddamn weird as what. It has a special meter called Corruption, which increases over time, decreases when it receives healing, and increases further when VF takes damage from any source. At any time, VF can consume 25% of this meter to heal for a significant amount. Once the meter reaches 100, the Fiend transforms into a corrupted version, replacing every ability with a more aggressive version, and giving the Fiend a ton of combat power. Drown is an aim-assisted beam weapon that slows enemies. When corrupted, it becomes a short-range destroyer of worlds, dealing an absolute boatload of damage. This is Fiendy Boy's main source of damage in corrupted mode. This ability is so much fun to use. Filling up the meter to full and retaliating with his death laser is an extremely satisfying loop to go through. Flood is a heavier shot from the Fiend's prawn mollusk arm thing, which can be fired immediately or charged up for an AoE. While corrupted, it always does the increased damage and AoE of the charged version, and has a larger radius, although it does arc downwards. Trespass is Fiend's movement ability, and I actually really like this one. Its unique curve allows you to navigate tricky terrain that you normally wouldn't be able to, as well as recover from getting knocked off an edge. While corrupted, it becomes a very fast forward lunge. Pretty cool. And finally, Suppress allows you to convert a quarter of your corruption into health, giving Void Fiend the option to play defensively and recover a lot of health. While corrupted, Void Fiend deals damage to itself in order to sustain corrupted mode. Overall, Void Fiend can definitely be a blast to play, but there are several small things that hold this character back in my opinion. The main thing is that any source of healing causes your corruption meter to revert, and since corruption is directly equivalent to healing, you can easily end up getting less health in return, as well as less control over when you corrupt. If you're unfortunate enough to get enough healing items, you can easily be locked out of using your corrupt form completely, effectively turning you into a crippled version of Commando. And while you could technically just not pick up healing items, the game isn't designed to accommodate for items having negative effects, save of course for special tiers such as Luna. Scrapping is technically an option too, but the risk of not finding any good printers or even finding a scrapper at all is always present. This quirk of Void Fiend holds it back from being one of my favorites, but despite all that, the gameplay loop of holding onto your corruption long enough and making yourself vulnerable in exchange for extreme damage genuinely never gets old. The fact that Fiend has no unlockable abilities is also quite a shame. It loses out on a lot of customizability that every other character has, which gives it less options in the long run. I'm not really sure why this is a thing, but it is what it is. But what's the point of having a Void-themed update if there's no Void? Survivors of the Void includes a new game mode called the Simulacrum. Instead of trying to stay ahead of the ever-increasing curve by leveling up and finding items, players must fight repeating waves of enemies. The Simulacrum is pretty fun. It's nice to see a completely different game mode that's mostly isolated from the base game. Definitely a fun bit of side content. It's easy to lose hours and hours to this mode. I should know. Going back to the base game, you may now notice mysterious void seeds cropping up around the in-game levels. These host powerful new void items, but are guarded by nasty void infestors, tiny maggots that can infest various targets as their host, turning them into voracious void-type enemies with a slew of nasty tricks up their sleeves. Once felled, the infestor is set loose once again, and must be squashed with a swift movement of one's heel before they infest something else. Once all void enemies inside a seed have been eliminated, the damaging fog will close up and reveal some tasty secrets, such as the potential to receive any of the new void items. At the end of the day, what's the point of having new characters if there are no new items to turn them into mutated hedgehogs with? The focal point here being mutated, because Survivors of the Void introduces a new hallmark tier of items, the aptly named Void tier. These items are unique because every one of them is tied to an existing item of any of the 3 base rarities, and picking up a Void item will corrupt any of the uncorrupted versions you possessed for the rest of the run. This introduces a really interesting gameplay loop, because while the Void items themselves don't possess any intrinsic downsides, the way Lunar items do, you'll end up losing the effects of any and all present and future versions of the non-corrupted version. This creates many interesting gameplay scenarios, A great example of this is the Lost Seer's lenses, the corrupted version of Lens Maker's glasses. Lens Makers are one of the staple Risk of Rain 2 items. Applicable to every build and every character, they make for a fantastic DPS increase. Combine them with a Harvester's Scythe or Predatory Instincts, and all of a sudden you have built-in healing or attack speed buffs. Lost Seer's lenses, contrastingly, give all your attacks a small but noticeable chance to instantly kill any enemy, save for teleporter bosses. While small, with enough of them you can easily eradicate many of the normal enemies you face. And while this may seem better in the moment, the obvious trade-off is that you lose the crit-based buffs from other items, and additionally, have no bonus attack power against bosses. This dynamicism makes Void items an extremely interesting addition to the game, really adding to one of my favourite aspects of Risk of Rain games, the endless number of interactions between items and character abilities. Quite frankly, there is just no time to go over each of these items one by one, as much as I would like to. My favourites of the Void tier are probably Benthic Bloom, Lysate Cell, and Plasma Shrimp, if you were wondering. As cool as the Void tier of items is, there actually isn't that many of them, and after only a few runs I felt that I uncovered most of the secrets they had to offer. Couple this with the fact that they are all unlocked by default, the Void tier is definitely a fantastic addition, but it doesn't add a load of playtime to the game. The Void tier isn't the only collection of new items. There are plenty of new mundane items that'll only partially turn your character into a purple sea creature. Some notable additions here are items like Ignition Tank and Pocket ICBM. These additions are unique in that they do absolutely nothing by themselves, but pair them with any source of fire, or any source of missiles respectively, and oh boy. Items like these are fantastic because they create so many of those lightbulb moments that makes playing with the new Risk of Rain 2 update so much fun. Moments like figuring out that Artificer's fire-centric abilities are actually affected by Ignition Tank, which makes it one of the best green tier items for her. Or that Lysate Cell works for Engineer, allowing you to have 3 freaking turrets. I can safely say that this update blows all of the previous ones out of the water when it comes to cool interactions like this. The Lunar items that SOTV adds are also certainly worth mentioning, especially as some of the Lunars added in previous updates weren't really up to scratch if you ask me, because the Lunar tier is supposed to be full of unique items that completely change up your run, for better or worse. Items like Mercurial Rackus and Defiant Gouge that have little to no impact on your run don't really add much to the tier. The Lunars that SOTV adds, while there are only 4 of them, are some of the most interesting Lunar items to date, but Egocentrism completely takes the cake when it comes to uniqueness. This item gives you 3 opening bombs that detonate for a decent amount of damage when they make close contact with any enemy, but that's not all. Every 60 seconds, a random other item you have is assimilated into another copy of Egocentrism. This item immediately sets your run on a ticking time bomb, requiring you to make quick decisions and think on foot. Don't get me wrong, this item is absolutely terrible, and I don't think I'll ever willingly take it unless I'm extremely desperate, but it's such a fun concept, and if the bombs could be reworked to actually be an effect that could carry your run by themselves, might be a bit more commonplace in the average game. Egocentrism should serve as a mantra by which all future Lunar items are designed, and despite its awfulness, it's easily become one of my favorites. What's the point of having new characters and new items to explode things with if you don't have any new enemies to explode? And of course some pretty vistas to make a nice backdrop for your gory explosion fetish. Sadly, there just is not enough time to go over every enemy individually, but here are some highlights. My personal favourite of the more trashy enemies added is Alpha Constructs. These geometric plasma flingers are neat because they are completely stationary and can appear on floors and ceilings. Pretty fun to fight, and they can still pose a considerable threat if unregarded. Clay Apothecaries are pretty cool. It's nice to see some more tar-themed enemies present. The absence of the eponymous tar men from the first game still feels a bit off though. Regarding Void-themed enemies, the DLC includes a number of evil purple seafood to fight. A paella, if you will. Void Jailers are easily my new favourite enemy entirely. Inspired by the infamous prawn, crossed with an enforcer, Jailers possess a powerful shotgun attack, as well as the ability to snare the player stock still, allowing for easy meat shots. Be wary, because even if you manage to skewer it, the Jailer unleashes a homing insta-kill ball upon death. If it doesn't take you with it, it's likely to absorb one of your innocent drones instead. Void Devastators are also pretty fun. Big crab, go boom. Risk of Rain 2's enemies have always been a high point for me, and I feel that not enough people really talk about them. They're enjoyable to look at, fun to fight for the most part, and fun to read about in the logbook. The Void enemies theme of being evil sea creatures is honestly a really fun idea. It makes for some great visual interest and an instantly recognizable look. The new stages added are one of the highlights for me as well. More areas really make the game feel more fresh and fun to navigate. While all of them are great, the sulfur pools are easily my favourite new area added, maybe even my favourite from the whole game. The whole area has this fantastic yellow colour scheme, giving it this sickly irradiated feel. That, combined with the soundtrack, gives this zone a sinister oozing aesthetic. It's pretty fantastic. Finally, the single biggest piece of content that Survivors of the Void adds is a brand new final boss to tackle. This is big news when it comes to Risk of Rain 2, as every run previously ended with killing Mithrix or looping until obliteration, or death, obviously. A new final boss gives a new possibility for putting that build of yours to the test, and goddamn does this new creature do that successfully. To access it, you must first complete the Void Fields, accessed by the secret portal located below the Bazaar Between Time. The fields have been completely reworked. Now the fog deals greatly increased damage, and much more dangerous enemies tend to appear. However, you do get to choose any items you get out of a potential 3. And, of course, time actually advances during this stage now. These changes mean that the Void Fields is no longer a no-brainer, easy free item as part of the game. It's significantly more difficult now, and is quite likely to result in your death. Going there as soon as you can is no longer an option due to the increased difficulty, and to be honest, I'm quite happy with this change. Before, the Void Fields was literally just free items, including a guaranteed red, and because of how easy it was early on, the experience got old very fast. Personally, I used to just not do the Void Fields because of how boring it used to be. After beating the new and improved purple zone, you're presented with 2 portals. Picking the purpler, spookier looking one will take you to the new second to final stage, the Void Locus. Portals to this place can also randomly spawn during a run, meaning you won't have to risk the Void Fields, but also won't get the extra items from there. The Void Locus is the prerequisite area before the final stage. You must activate and charge 4 Deep Void signals, which starts a similar event to the cells in the Void Fields. This time, only the extremely tough Void enemies will appear, so watch out and try not to get seasickness. Instead of regular chests, plenty of opportunities to get Void items will appear here, so be sure to capitalize upon this and grab yourself some purple piscus. After all 4 signals are activated, step through the portal to find yourself in the planetarium, and alongside the brand new final boss of Survivors of the Void. The Voidling is an absolutely colossal beast, stalking around its arena much like a spider crab would the ocean floor. I love the scale of this thing. It feels awesome to fight such a gargantuan creature in the Risk of Rain 2 engine, truly making your character feel like an ant once again, reminiscent of the first game. It'll unleash a variety of attacks during the fight. Generally speaking, you can find cover to use against some of its attacks. Preferably, find something that you can climb to avoid its spinning laser attack, which it'll occasionally perform. After defeating its first phase, it'll lead you through a tear in reality, making way for a brief parkour segment inside the Void Fog. Keep your patience, these segments are doable even with no movement items. Just try and keep focused, and don't worry too much about the fog. The second phase is much like the first, except this time, the Voidling has an attack where it can pull you in. It's similar to the death effects of Jailers and Reavers. Getting caught in this will instantly kill you, so be sure to rely on cover that you're hopefully still standing behind. After this, rinse and repeat the parkour segment, except this time it'll be a little bit harder. And then, rinse and repeat the fighting part of the boss, except this time you must remain close to the boss else the fog will slowly suffocate you. You should stay within the arena, obviously, but don't get too close to keep yourself safe from the suck attack. Upon being felled, the Voidling spawns a portal where it lies dead, and that's it. We're presented with another Fate Unknown screen, like when one obliterates, and that's it. Honestly, this is pretty disappointing to me. I was definitely expecting some sort of cutscene considering the absolute scale of this boss. This critique of mine also extends to other parts of the DLC. There's no intro cutscene either, and not even a custom main menu graphic to let us know we're in for something special. It really would be nice to have a unique intro and outro for the DLC, as this would help solidify and give it its own little story aside from the main game. Especially taking into account how vapid the Mithrix ending can be, it really would have been nice to see this. But overall, it's an extremely satisfying boss fight, and one that I'll happily say I'll be seeking out plenty of times in the future. Survivors of the Void is, generally speaking, quite a great DLC. It is absolutely worth the $15 US price tag, and it's certainly exciting to also consider other prospects regarding the future of Risk of Rain 2. It seems this beloved game of ours has plenty of life left, so it'll be a joy to see where things go from here. I do have some minor criticisms with it. Yeah, I know, it wouldn't be one of my videos without this, but for the most part these are pretty small. I'll put the lesser ones up on screen, but I won't go over them individually since many of them have already been fixed or changed at the time of writing. My other criticism aside from these, and the lack of a new ending and intro, intro cutscene is that there's barely anything to unlock. Unlockables give games like Risk of Rain 2 the feeling that you've earned the cool stuff added in the update. The only things you can actually unlock in this game are Railgunner's alternate abilities and the mastery skins for both characters. There are no unlockable items whatsoever, which is honestly quite a shame, because Risk of Rain 2 is one of those games where I do enjoy going for the completionist route. There are also no unlocks associated with the Simulacrum, which means there isn't really any reason to play it, aside from fun, which, to be fair, it does have plenty of that to offer. Surely some unlockable Void tier items from completing certain feats in this mode could have been worthwhile. The fact that Void Fiend doesn't have any alternate abilities either is also quite a shame. It makes playing the character far less interesting, as there's no experimenting to be had with alt unlocks. Aside from these relatively minor things though, Survivors of the Void is absolutely fantastic, and you should buy it. You should also buy Risk of Rain 2 if you haven't already. In my opinion, it's easily one of the best roguelites on the market at the moment. That's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed the departure from my usual stuff. I won't lie, it's been pretty enjoyable to make a video on something else for a change. All of that being said, thanks for watching, and I guess I'll see you next time.